Hello everyone, this is Michaela and I'm here to talk to you about learning your learning style. The first thing I'd like to say is your learning style isn't set in stone. It's really just your preference for learning. It's how you prefer to learn. It's not that you can only learn in one way or two ways. It's the way you're going to best process information. So there are 5 different learning modalities that I'm going to talk with you today about. There's the visual learner, which is those who like to see it. The auditory learners, which are those who like to hear it. The linguistic learners, which are those who like to read or write it. The kinesthetic learners, which are those who like to practice it or do it. And then the multimodal learner, which can be a mixture of any of the other learners or only some of them. Before we go any further, I recommend you guys take the VARC questionnaire. It's going to help you determine your learning style, and it'll make this presentation meaningful for you personally. Auditory learners, you're kind of in a good spot for school. A lot of schools set up for you in that you're going to have to attend lecture or listen to material at some point in all your coursework. So my first tip for any and all learners is to attend classes. Auditory learners especially record lectures. That's going to be really helpful for you, especially if you're confused on a subject that went over in lecture, because then you can re-listen to it. You really process information better through lectures than you would ever get out of like reading a book. You're going to understand the things a lot better. And also, if you have the lectures recorded, you can buff up your notes and make them easier to study for. And when you're looking at those notes, I recommend reading them out loud because again, that oral stimulation is going to be better for you. You can also make songs to help you remember things. So it's going to be way easier for you to understand the periodic table through a song than it is going to be to look at each element on the periodic table and memorizing it. So if you can put all the important details into a song, that's really going to help you. And then when you're quizzing yourself through active studying, I recommend both reading the question out loud and then speaking your answers because again, that's going to help you remember and process that information better. And then my last suggestion for you is to have a conversation about concepts that you struggle with. So if you go and meet with the professor or you're studying with another classmate, just talk about that subject and that's going to help you remember things better and understand them better. Visual learners. School can also be a great place for you. So you might not get as much out of lectures, but it really just depends on who your teacher is and how they teach. So you can be successful in any environment. So firstly, my recommendation for any lectures is going to be sitting near the front of class. It's going to be reduce your visual stimulation because that kid typing away on his keyboard or surfing the web is going to be distracting for you. Secondly, I recommend using learning tools, graphs, diagrams, videos, flowcharts, pictures. These are all going to help you and they're going to be key reminders for you when you're studying. You're going to understand information in diagrams much better. It's going to be easier for you to process even if you have a smart art of a cycle that's going to help you remember. And I also recommend making these on your own because you're going to remember them better if you create them. That being said, pay attention to videos and demonstrations in class because these are going to help you because you can visually picture them. And then I recommend, as a visual learner myself, is to use color. I like using color in my notes. I write notes with colored pens and I highlight. I highlight my book, even holding a highlighter in my hand helps me when I'm reading. And don't be afraid to underline and bold important things. Linguistic learners. Again, school's a really great place for you. You might not get as much out of lectures, but you will have a great variety of available resources for you. So my first thing is getting through lectures. Outline them. If you outline them like you would when you're writing an essay, that's really going to help you understand things. And then also write down definitions of words that aren't clear to you because you're really going to grasp the concepts better and you're going to remember them better if you are writing them or reading them. I recommend this for any learning style, but especially linguistic learners. Write journals or summaries each week. If you have to take one massive final, having journals and summaries each week is going to be really helpful. It'll help you remember what everything you went over was. But it especially helps you process information. Linguistic learners study your notes and write lists and describe things you need to remember. Because always writing or reading what you need to know is going to be the best way for you to go through information. Kinesthetic learners, school's going to be a little bit rougher for you because a lot of lectures aren't set up for that, and lectures are where you get a lot of information, but you're not going to be doing a lot of hand stuff in lectures. That's why you have to make the most out of your outside experiences. So my first recommendation is always read the lab manual before labs, because that'll allow you to actively participate in labs, and you're going to get so much more out of labs than you ever will from lectures. And participate in field trips. Practice problems. So if you're in math, write down the practice problem and do it again when you get home, and do all your homework and try, because practicing those problems is really going to help you understand the concept better. Secondly, draw charts. You're engaging, you're active when you draw charts, and it's also going to help you remember key information, especially if it's in charts and diagrams. And you can sit near the front of class because, again, that's just going to help you focus on lectures better. And then move while studying. If you have note cards made up and you're quizzing yourself, walk back and forth, because that activeness is going to help you remember that concept better. And lastly, an important tip I saw that sounded like a really cool idea was, you take your notes in class, but then you type them up in Word, and you can add images and pictures and videos of things to help you, and then just putting that together. You don't have to necessarily, I would recommend studying your notes, but putting this document together of your notes and then like outside sources is going to help you remember the concepts better, because you're actively putting it together and it's like a hands-on experience. Multimodal learners are those who can use really any of the learning styles that we've talked about so far, or some of them. So I recommend using like a multimodal study habit. So like you can write a song to help you study writing songs. When you write it, you're using your linguistic learning style, and when you are singing it, you're using that auditory, and that's really going to help you process information. You can also draw diagrams of cycles. So if you're drawing, you're doing that kinesthetic thing and being active, and if you're into diagrams, you're also engaging that visual learning. But what's really going to help you is active studying. So just being active when you study, so quizzing yourself and making activities. I saw this really cool activity of, if you're trying to remember a really complex cycle, you can write each step in the cycle on a note card and then put together that cycle like a sort of puzzle. And then lastly, group study sessions, because you're going to be exposing yourself to different types of learners who understand things through probably what they prefer. So they might see it in a completely different way, but understand it perfectly. And if you're really struggling with a concept, seeing it in different ways is going to help you. Because multimodal learners, they might be able to learn it one way in one time, but sometimes they struggle. So being able to see it in another light, in a different way, is going to be helpful. Like when I was learning about the chemistry in the molecule structures, I didn't understand it when it was described in class. I didn't understand it when it was drawn on the board, but I understood it when I was kinesthetically putting together that model in my lab. So just engaging all those different senses can be really helpful. There's no right or wrong way to learn. You're not stuck in one way or another. You're not going to fail because you're a kinesthetic learner, and lectures aren't really set up for a kinesthetic learner. You can learn in any way. These are just the ways you prefer to learn, and there are different ways that you can be successful in school, and just different tips for studying to be most effective with what your learning style is. So please spend the next 5 to 10 minutes reflecting on this presentation and answering these questions. What are the 5 different learning styles? What is your learning style? What learning style specific study methods can you use to be successful in school? Do you plan on implementing any of the tips you saw today? Thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys all have a great summer.